Attack on Titan is a show that revels in moral grayness. Heroes and villains aren't clearly defined, and pretty often the characters have to make hard decisions or do awful things for what they believe is the greater good. Now, Attack on Titan has no shortage of amazing characters. This cast is stacked as all characters bring something unique and serve a purpose to the story. However, one character that stuck out to me throughout the entire show is Jean Kirstein. Jean has what I believe to be the greatest character arc in Attack on Titan, and is the closest thing to a definitive hero in the entire show. Or at least on par with Armin, who is a more central character and sort of the bright side to the entire show's moral debate, but yet I feel Jean is more down-to-earth and relatable than Armin, and has a deeper struggle, but I'll cover that later. Also, as a note, I will be spoiling the shit out of the show. So if you haven't seen it, click off this video and watch the show, because I don't want to be the one who spoiled Attack on Titan for someone. Now, I'm sure quite a bit of people disagree when they read the title and hear me claim Jean is the hero of Attack on Titan. I'm sure to a lot of people, Jean doesn't seem the hero type. That belief, I think, is mainly caused by Jean's introduction. You see, Jean is introduced as sort of an antagonistic force. Our protagonist Eren is a new recruit in the military, and Jean is almost like a bully figure at first. Eren is hell-bent on devoting his entire life to killing Titans, and Jean makes fun of him for this, saying that Eren will just get himself killed. He also reveals that he joined the military so that he could join the military police and live a comfortable life in the interior. Jean thinks joining the Survey Corps is suicide, which it kind of is. The majority of people who join the Survey Corps ride off outside the walls and never come back, and also usually suffer horrific deaths. Jean's contrast with Eren is an important point throughout the show. Jean is purposely introduced as a foil of Eren. At this point, we're siding with Eren because he's our protagonist. We've been following him and have seen what's driven him to want to kill the Titans, and are rooting for him to complete this goal. We've only just been introduced to Jean, and he's been constantly cocky and mean to our protagonist. He's also openly very selfish. Eren wants to kill Titans to make a world without Titans and give mankind freedom, and Jean is just concerned with giving himself a comfortable life. This isn't the intro you'd imagine for a hero, but it's where he grows from here that's important. Jean ends up being the 6th highest scoring recruit in the military. The only people scoring higher than him are a boy whose entire existence is dedicated to killing Titans, 3 kids who, unknown at the time, already have military training, and a literal superhuman. So Jean did pretty well, all things considered. Jean doesn't truly start to shine until the Battle of Trost arc. Here, the city of Trost is flooded with Titans. Jean is absolutely terrified. A big difference between Jean and Eren is that Eren never feels fear. Eren sees Titans and only has anger running through his body, because he is, as Jean describes, a suicidal maniac. And you want to know what happens in the Battle of Trost? Eren loses his shit and gets his entire team killed, and gets himself eaten as well, only surviving due to a power he did not know he had. If Eren did not have that power, he would have died in his first fight against Titans. Jean's title of suicidal maniac is completely accurate. So the city is full of Titans whose entire point of being is to eat humans, and Jean, and every other reasonable person, is rightfully scared. The vast majority of people die when they go against Titans. Being terrified is the appropriate reaction. The recruits are stranded as they are low on gas, and the resupply team is too scared to come help them. Mikasa, after hearing Eren is dead, begins leading the recruits to the fort to resupply themselves. She, however, runs off and almost dies, so Jean starts leading the recruits in her place. Jean has to make difficult decisions, including using others' death as a distraction so they can push forward. He is horrified to watch people he was leading die, but he does successfully lead the recruits to headquarters. Here is where we get one of the most vital moments for Jean's character. Jean doesn't think he's cut out to be a leader, but Marco supports him by telling Jean because he's not a strong person, he can relate to the weak and lead them. Jean isn't fearless like Eren, and unlike Eren, his squad survived. He feels fear and knows how to push through it. Furthermore, he is very good at reading a situation and finding a solution. When it comes to the recruits, Jean is probably the 2nd smartest behind Armin. Obviously there's also Erwin and Hanji, but they're experienced adults. The strategic minds of the younger characters really fall on Armin and Jean. During the later half of the Battle of Trost, when they are attempting to use Eren to seal the hole in the wall, Jean puts himself in grave danger by distracting a Titan to save Connie. His gear ends up breaking and he is stranded on the ground surrounded by Titans. Marco saves John's life by doing the same thing John did and distracting the Titan. After the Battle of Trost, during the cleanup, John stumbles across Marco, who somehow died without John ever seeing. John is devastated by this, as Marco was one of his best friends in the recruits and saved his life. Right after the Battle of Trost is when the recruits must decide which branch of the military they're joining. Remember, John's sole reason for joining the military was to live a comfy life as a member of the military police, and he got in the top 10 recruits, so it's sort of expected for him to join them. Most of the other recruits are dissuaded from joining the Survey Corps after having experienced the Battle of Trost. That experience showed them just how terrifying the Titans are, and most of them want to live their life never seeing another Titan. However, Jean now finds himself struggling to choose. While the Battle of Trost scared off many, including Connie, it only showed John why the Survey Corps is needed, and he finds himself agreeing with all of Aaron's preaching on the importance of continuing the fight against the Titans. Jean, while watching the burning of the bodies of the dead recruits, and after remembering what Marco said to him, while his entire body is shaking, declares he's joining the Survey Corps. Marco's support and death clearly had a drastic effect on John. Jean still openly states he doesn't want to join the Survey Corps, and that he's terrified of the Titans. He also states that no one convinced him to do it either, he came to the decision himself. The amount of recruits that join the Survey Corps is also diminished by Erwin being completely blunt in sharing the fact that most of the recruits who join the Survey Corps will die. The majority of the recruits walk away, deciding to join the garrison or military police instead. Jean, Sasha, Connie, Armin, Mikasa, Krista, and Ymir do not leave and join the Survey Corps. Reiner and Bertal also remain, but they have their own reasons to join. Of the group that remains, we only hear the inner debate of Jean, Connie, and Sasha, who very clearly are struggling to remain as their entire body is telling them to run far away from the Titans, yet they remain. Jean is the main character who shows the struggle and courage it takes to join the Survey Corps. His fear and desire to run away and live a safe life is understandable, but we've also seen what's driving him to join the Survey Corps. This is where I want to talk about the greatest strength of John's character. In my opinion, Jean is the most down-to-earth and relatable character in the entire show. Let's take a look at the main three: Eren, Mikasa, and Armin. Unlike most people, Eren doesn't feel fear when he sees Titans. Eren just gets angry. Eren's entire goal in life isn't to protect anyone, at least at this point, but instead he just wants to kill all the Titans. We understand why and can relate to Eren's hatred of something that ruined his entire life, but most people would not be a fearless maniac in the face of mortal danger. Mikasa is definitely the least relatable of the three. She is just a superhuman whose entire existence is dedicated to protecting Eren. She doesn't have any struggle where she debates how to move forward. She instantly knows she's joining the Survey Corps because that's where Eren is going. Armin is, I'd say, the most relatable of the three. He is not very strong and he doesn't have an insane bloodlust. He struggles with fear often and isn't very good in a fight. However, Armin is also a super genius, which makes him less down to earth. He also doesn't have any struggle with joining the Survey Corps. He instantly knows he's going to join the Survey Corps, albeit with a better reason of wanting to explore the world mixed with wanting to be with Eren. Jean is not a superhuman, super genius, or suicidal maniac. Jean does not want to die and is terrified of dangerous situations, like most people would be. But despite that, he is willing to put himself in danger for the sake of others or what he believes is the right thing to do. Jean is definitely highly skilled for the average person, he just pales in comparison to the super soldiers above him. Jean is actually one of the smartest tacticians in the show, as he is a skilled leader and can come up with quick solutions to tricky situations. It's just a shame he's in the same show as Erwin and Armin. But he isn't a master in any of these. He's above average, but still a down-to-earth human with realistic limits. Jean is the mundane person in an extraordinary situation, yet he shows off the strength and courage that resides in the average person. At the end of the same episode in which Jean joins the Survey Corps, Jean, after a bit of criticizing him, puts his faith into Eren. Now in the Survey Corps and on his first expedition outside the walls, Jean immediately shows his strength and how much he's grown. Jean, Armin, and Reiner encounter the female Titan. Armin quickly figures out it is another human in a Titan body, meaning it can very easily kill all three of them if they try to attack it. But they also know it's heading towards Eren and will kill all the scouts in the way. Armin and Reiner believe they should just fall back and not attack it, as they don't stand a chance against it. But Jean knows if it keeps going, it will kill many more people. so he believes they should put their lives at risk and try to fight it. Reiner even says, "The Jean I know never thinks of anyone but himself." Jean responds by saying he doesn't want those charred bones to be disappointed in him, referring to Marco. One of the big recurring themes in Attack on Titan is the idea of carrying on the legacy of the dead. And many points to the show, characters talk about how they can feel their fallen comrades looking down upon them. Marco is that figure for Jean, someone who Jean feels obligated to try and honor by being the best person he can be. Now, this next point is a bit of a stretch, but hear me out as it will come back later. The main music theme of the show is called, as you would expect, Attack on Titan. This song contains the music that normally plays when the Titans attack. This is haunting music embodying the horror of the Titans. However, there's also a part of the song that represents the courage of fighting back, and this part is more heroic and epic, inspiring hope in the face of terror. Now, when does this part play in the show? It plays when Jean charges forward at the female Titan. The main theme of the show specifically plays in Jean's heroic moment. Am I arguing that Jean is the main character because of the music that plays in a scene? Well, I'll come back to that in the last episode of the show. Anyway, this attempt goes horribly wrong and Jean is almost killed, but Armin uses his 1000 IQ to save him at the last moment. But again, Jean went into this fight knowing the risks, but deciding it's worth it for the greater good. Throughout the rest of the expedition, Jean and Armin stick together, and they make a really good duo as Jean is one of the few, I think, who can keep up with Armin's intelligence and the two bounce off each other really well. After the woods fight, Jean and Armin are loading bodies onto carts, and Jean worries about both when he will die and how he will die, showing how afraid he still is, but knowing he will continue to fight on. During the fight in Walshina against Annie, Jean is disguised as Eren and under the custody of the military police. When the fighting breaks out, Jean rips off his disguise and rushes to join the battle, with even Levi of all people complimenting him on his bravery. While running towards the fight, Jean sees some members of the military police standing around doing nothing while the city is under attack. Jean calls them slackers and recognizes the fact that he could have been one of them. This is the moment of reflection, showing how far Jean has come just in this season alone. Jean only has a few notable moments in Season 2. He is among the group that tries to talk to Reiner and Bertolt into just explaining their situation. This doesn't have much importance now, but later on in the show, Jean and Reiner's relationship develops much more. He also saves Mikasa. I'm sure a few people would have expected me to mention Jean's crush on Mikasa by now, but it's not really important. I do think it provides another interesting contrast with Eren, as Jean actually shows affection towards Mikasa, which Eren rarely does. Jean, once again, does almost die at the end of Season 2 when Reiner throws a whole-ass Titan at him. Between that and risking his life to save Mikasa, it just shows how Jean places the Survey Corps and the lives of others above his own life now. In Season 3, Jean has an interesting mini-arc. Jean and the gang face the fact that Titans are no longer the only enemy. They now have to fight and kill humans, and do lots of other morally gray things. This is sort of the beginning of the idea that our heroes will have to do awful things for the greater good, an idea that will only get larger as the show goes on. Jean is the leading figure against doing morally wrong things. Jean, despite being in a life or death situation, struggles the most out of any of the group when it comes to killing other people. He hesitates and almost dies, which forces Armin, the other moral compass of the show, to kill someone to save him. Armin, the literal representation of the hope side of the moral debate of the show, is able to dirty his hands before Jean. Jean struggles with the idea of having to do bad things along with the rest of the crew, like when Levi tortures someone and they can all hear the screams. Jean continues to do his best in these situations, even managing to convince 2 military police members to join and help them so that he doesn't have to kill them. However, Jean does have to come to terms that at a certain point it is kill or be killed, and when they face off against Kenny's squad in the cave, Jean has to kill. Jean doesn't really have any other big growth or moments in Season 3 because so much other stuff is happening in Season 3. However, there are still small moments that stick out. For example, when Levi shares the news with the crew that Erwin has just declared that Historia will become the new queen, since she's technically the heir to the throne, many of them feel conflicted about that since it's forcing Historia into another role she might not want. Connie tries to raise his concerns about this but is scared to argue with Levi. Jean sees this and steps up and tells Levi that they shouldn't force Historia into something she might not want. This is just another small moment that shows Jean's courage, especially when it comes to protecting others. Jean does get his moments in Return to Shiganshina, however. Jean notices Connie and Sasha's hesitation when they have to fight and potentially kill Reiner. He pushes them forward to fight Reiner. Then, after they believe they've killed Reiner, Jean begins to cheer about his defeat, but sees Connie and Sasha saddened by what they believe is the death of their old friend, and Jean yells at them, clearly conflicted about his own feelings. After Armin is put in charge of Squad Levi, Armin cannot handle the pressure of leadership and looks to Jean to lead them, which Jean does, making strategic decisions like having Eren carry them to conserve gas. Jean confides in Armin that he'll be able to lead the group for a bit, but still puts his trust into Armin's ability to come up with a plan. Armin obviously becomes much more of a leader later on, but Jean is constantly portrayed as a leader figure in the group. While Eren and Armin take on Bertolt, Jean leads the rest of the group against Reiner, which does ultimately succeed despite some problems. Afterwards, Jean is the one who convinces Hanji not to kill Reiner. This is only a little bit after Jean was gloating over Reiner's defeat. Jean himself is confused as to why he stopped Hanji from killing Reiner. Immediately afterwards, Reiner is taken by the Cart Titan, and Jean regrets his choice and blames himself for letting the enemy get away. Jean did what he believed was both the strategic and morally correct thing to do, and though he regrets it at the moment, sparing Reiner actually has very good consequences in the end. Now, finally, we are in Season 4, where Jean truly gets to shine. During the attack on Marley, Jean very vocally disapproves of the killing of civilians, and even yells at Flock about this. Everyone in the group at this point does awful things as they are at war. Jean is no exception as he shoots a thunder spear at Peak despite a child standing in the way, but at least he hesitates. Jean hesitating to kill a child is one of the morally best things a character does in this arc, as the whole gang is committing war crimes now. The literal moral compass of the show is the one that kills the most civilians in the battle, so this is really where the lines start getting blurred. This arc also gives moments to show that Jean is still very talented and a natural leader, as he leads soldiers against the Cart Titan, and even is the one to put his life at risk and defeat it, getting payback for when it almost killed him and Hanji. After the battle, on the Zeppelin, Jean expresses his concern for the oncoming war and is upset by the fact he knows many people will have to die. Shortly after this, Jean sees one of his best friends since he was a child get shot and killed by two children. Jean is devastated by Sasha's death, and this seems like a reasonable moment for Jean to do something awful, but Jean stops the other scouts like Flock from killing Gabby and Falco, despite them just killing his close friend. Instead, he takes them up front so the kids can see Zeke betrayed Marley, and he tells Eren that it is his fault that Sasha is dead since he caused this battle. Eren at this point is still pretending to be cold and distant, yet this still breaks through his act and visibly hurts him. In the flashbacks showing what happened between the end of Season 3 and the start of Season 4, the group discusses who should inherit Eren's Titan after Eren's 13 years are over. Mikasa initially volunteers, but Jean steps in and explains since Mikasa is an Ackerman, she's too valuable to turn into a Titan, and volunteers himself. All of them are still teenagers at this point, and they know that by inheriting Eren's Titan, they will only have 13 years left to live. Jean volunteering himself, knowing that he will be giving up the majority of his life to become a Titan because it's needed for Eldia, once again shows how far he's come from the selfish boy who wanted to join the military police for his own gain. Going back to Jean not killing Gabby and Falco, Jean also defends the Marley and Niccolo when he gets attacked at Sasha's grave. And later on when Niccolo finds Gabby and Falco and is about to kill them as revenge for Sasha, Jean tries talking Niccolo down. After Sasha's father is the one to talk Niccolo down from getting revenge on his own daughter, we get to see not only Jean but the whole group secure and care for Gabby and Falco, despite these kids being the one to kill their friend. This is just a very thematically important scene for the whole show, especially with Sasha's dad's speech and him not seeking revenge against Gabby. Moving quite a bit forward in the show, Eren has betrayed Zeke and started the Rumbling. Many Eldians are turned into Titans due to Zeke's plan, and they now need to clear the city of Titans. This whole sequence acts as an awesome callback to the Battle of Trost, with it just being the characters in the city fighting Titans, and even plays Barricades, the song from Season 2. Now, the main trio of the show has always been Eren, Mikasa, and Armin. They are the face of the show. Most of the merch has either them or Levi on it, but at this point of the show, Eren's a little busy committing genocide and is separated from the group. When they have to clear the city of the Titans, it is the trio of Mikasa, Armin, and Jean. Jean actually begins leading all the other members of the military. He has them come to the roof, and they do their own version of the elevator sequence from Season 1. Mikasa and Armin even hesitate when they see Commander Pixies, who has now been turned into a Titan, and Jean is the one to push them forward. Jean really has a high point there, which is funny considering what comes after is a low point for him. After the Titans have been killed, Paradis is taken over by the Jaegerists, the radical followers of Eren. The group is scattered at this point, with their commander Hanji being stranded outside of the city with an almost dead Levi. The group has no commander and is powerless to the massive military force of the Jaegerists. The group has to fend for themselves. This is a rough time for the group, and Armin is crumbling under all the pressure. He goes off to rescue Falco from Connie, who wants to feed Falco to his mother. Armin tells Mikasa just to help Jean. Right away, Floch and the Jaegerists begin doing awful things, like executing Marleyan prisoners. Jean watches this and is powerless to stop it. This is where Floch begins trying to manipulate Jean, saying now that the fighting is over and they've won, Jean can stop fighting and live the comfortable life he always wanted to live. He even says he can go back to being the old Jean. Floch is basically trying to revert Jean back into his Season 1 self by promising him all the things he initially joined the military for. Jean sort of just follows along for now, becoming a lackey for Floch, but in every shot of him, it is clear he is in agony over the things going on around him. At night, he just sits awake in bed, unable to fall asleep to the sounds of millions of colossal titans stomping past. Floch and many others seem to think Jean really has given in and joined the Jaegerists, but both the characters who know him and we the audience can't believe Jean would really do something like this. Even Onyankopon, about to be executed, calls the Jaegerists out and turns to Jean to be the voice of reason, despite Jean holding a gun to his head. This is where it's revealed Jean is still working with the group, shooting 4 times in a row as a signal to Mikasa and the others. The group has partnered with Marley to stop Eren together. Onyankopon asks why Jean would do that, considering if he didn't, Jean would have everything he's ever wanted. Jean explains that, very similarly to him joining the Survey Corps, Jean wishes he could have chosen differently, but his own conscience and memory of Marco wouldn't let him. The next episode starts with a flashback. It initially shows Jean's dream of living comfortably in the interior with a wife who looks suspiciously like Mikasa. This cuts to Jean sitting in his room with Hanji knocking on the window trying to get his attention. Jean covers his ears and tries to pretend he didn't hear it, telling himself not to go because he'll get everything he wants if he doesn't go. Yet he still goes to Hanji. Hanji is there to try to talk Jean and Mikasa into joining them in the fight against Eren. Mikasa almost instantly agrees to join, but Jean takes more convincing. Jean is the main character who shows how awful the situation is and how tough of a decision they have to make. I'm kind of surprised he is the only one that really struggles with the choice. The characters have to decide whether they just stand aside and let Eren massacre the rest of the world, saving their island and people, or whether they go after Eren to stop the rumbling, which means assuming they manage to survive putting themselves on the front lines of the literal end of the world, they may have to kill their friend to save a bunch of people who want their race dead, and who will probably kill them and everyone on the island after Eren is stopped. They can do the right thing and stop genocide, but in doing so, will most likely lead to their own people getting genocided. They can't see the future and don't know about Eren's plans for them to have long lives. If they do try to stop Eren and succeed, they will most likely all die along with their country. This is one of the main reasons I love Jean. Jean is always the one to have a struggle with what is the right thing to do. He has been placed in some awful situations where the right path forward is not an obvious one. But the thing you come to learn about Jean is, you can always trust him to do the right thing. He will struggle and debate in his mind, but you always know at the end of the day, Jean's morals are his strongest influences on his decisions. So when Hanji begins talking about how she feels all her dead comrades looking at her, Jean sees the person who started him down this path and agrees to help stop Eren. The Scouts, now aligned with the Marleyans, have a very uneasy alliance. The two groups have spent years fighting each other, and now they're supposed to get along. Yelena tries to take advantage of this by bringing up all the violence between these two groups. This doesn't seem to work, until Yelena brings up Marco. Reiner explains what happened to Marco, and Jean seems to accept it, and even uses Marco's last words to try and reinforce the alliance and possible peace between the nations. That is, until Reiner starts wallowing in self-pity, which, given the fact that all of them have done terrible things and accepted the guilt, while Reiner just constantly wallows in it and beats himself up, sends Jean over the edge, and he attacks Reiner. In his frenzy, he accidentally hurts Gabby, and is horrified. The next day he apologizes to Gabby, and while not apologizing to Reiner, the two aren't against each other. It's not until the group is in the flying boat do Jean and Reiner finally make up, with Jean and Connie realizing now that they've had to murder good people in order to save others, they are basically the same as Reiner. Not long after this, when Eren talks to them in the paths, Jean is one of the first to try to convince Eren to stop the rumbling, and is one of the 4 who run towards Eren when they see him. Despite how often they fight, Eren and Jean are still childhood friends, and it's clear Eren means a lot to Jean. We have finally arrived at the final battle, which gives everyone their moments in the spotlight, including Jean. When the battle looks grim and the group is stuck under Eren, Jean is holding on to Reiner, who insists Jean drop him. Jean refuses, to which Reiner asks if Jean still believes that they can win. Jean says no, but insists they keep fighting to the end, as scouts do. He refers to both himself and Reiner as a scout, accepting Reiner as a brother in arms despite all of the fighting they've done. Later on, after Armin is saved and Levi kills Zeke and stops the rumbling, Reiner shouts for Jean to detonate the explosives around Eren's nape. And in this moment, in what is believed to be the final push of the battle and Jean's heroic moment, the Attack on Titan theme comes back. As far as I'm aware, this is the last time this song, or at least this specific part of the song, plays in the entire series. And it is for a moment with Jean, and heavily reflects the moment he charged the female Titan. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the first time this specific part of the song plays is with Jean, and the last time this part plays is with Jean. Am I using the use of a song to support my theory that Jean is the hero? Yes, I am. The part that is used for the heroic moments of fighting back against the cruelties of the world in 2 very important moments in the show play when someone who at one point only thought about himself selflessly charges into danger trying to protect or save others. Jean calls Eren a suicidal dumbass for what Jean assumes is probably the last time, and blows up Eren's nape. Also, when they are fleeing before Armin blows up Eren, Jean tells them to wait as Reiner is in the blast zone. The armored Titan can take it and Reiner survives, but it still shows Jean cares for Reiner. Eren comes back for one last fight, and the centipede thing lets out the mist that turns people into Titans. Levi, Mikasa, and Pieck ride away on Falco to go kill Eren as they are immune to the gas, but Jean and Connie stay behind as they are soon to turn into Titans. This is death as far as all of them know. They don't know that if they kill Eren, they'll be reverted back, so Jean and Connie really think this is the end for them. All of Jean's fear throughout the show and what caused him to not want to join the Survey Corps came from a very understandable desire to not die. He was terrified of dying, and as the show went on and they had to see more and more people die, Jean grew more concerned that his end was approaching. Yet here, when he is finally facing death, he is completely calm and entrusts the future to those who survive, as scouts do. Connie even tells Jean that it's his fault they got stuck with having to save the world. Jean does not die, however. After Eren is killed, the power of the Titans is erased from the world, turning all the pure Titans back into humans. He instead lives on as one of the ambassadors between Marley and Parody, as part of Eren's plan for them to become international heroes and live long lives. That is where Jean's story comes to an end. There is a theory that Jean is the one in the end credits standing next to Mikasa, and that he did end up marrying her, but that is not confirmed. There is a song from the Attack on Titan soundtrack I like, called The Reluctant Heroes. Not only is it a good song, but I think it is a good way of looking at the series. The title of a reluctant hero describes a lot of the characters from this series, but it fits none better than Jean. Someone who really does not want to be the one with the responsibility of saving the world, but steps up to it nonetheless. If we want to speak objectively, Armin is the hero of Attack on Titan. He is the one who has the philosophical debate with Eren and literally holds a symbolic representation of the show's theme in his hands. But I find Jean to be the more heroic figure, as he is just the average person in an extraordinary situation. He is not a Titan shifter, a superhuman, or super genius, yet he rises to be an inspiring leader and determined fighter, able to match those around him. He was not dragged into this following his best friend, or some parent's long-lost dream, or even a desire to explore the world. The only thing pushing him down this path was a desire to be a good person and to not let the sacrifices of the fallen be wasted. He is the most inspiring figure in the show, as he is a very relatable person with relatable feelings and fears who pushes forward and becomes a hero. He can be scared, he can be selfish, he doesn't always know the right way forward, but the goodness in him speaks louder than all of that and guides him. And someone who just wanted to live a comfortable life out of harm's way ends up very much being put in harm's way, often putting himself there to try to save others, and becomes a hero who saves the world and whose life is dedicated to seeking peace in a world destroyed by war. Jean is a very close second favorite character because despite all of my praise of him, Levi still sits at number 1, but that is a whole other video's worth, which I don't even know if that's worth making because everyone loves Levi. Part of the reason I wanted to make this video is I feel Jean is a very underrated character. When people think of Attack on Titan, they think Eren, Armin, Levi, Erwin, and while those are all great characters, I think Jean is just as good and deserves as much attention as the others for how good of a character he is. Thank you all for watching this overly long rant about a side character in an anime. I hope to see you in the next one.